absolutely. Oh, I might not be able to shoot the video. They might not let this one go. We'll see. I'll give it a minute before I start. Make sure it goes, because it's a doozy. It's a doozy. A lot of work to get to this point, and I want to show folks just point form. Just point form. Just two small point forms to keep me on track so I don't miss the bread and butter of what we're going to go through tonight. I promised this 6 p.m. It really is Canada and Denmark, evil as evil can be. We're going to start with hockey. 3 color codes that both Canada and Denmark share for their Olympic teams. Real important for the Lion-Hearted. Goes all the way back to 1154 for both the UK and Denmark, those medieval crowns. The 3 red lions, oh yeah, crowned, powerful, that's all it means. Powerful, entitled, human, gods over mankind, or who they designate as human being. Can't make this stuff up. It would be the world's perverts. 9 kingdoms that would continue on this way. Ever growing in evil. I'm going to warn everybody before I get started here. This is 18 plus. It's very hard for people to hear this truth. A lot of people will deny. They will deny, no different than so many deny Nazi Germany and the rest of it. No, it never happened. It's all a lie. It happened, and it is happening. And we are really at a war on America. Our Olympic Canadian teams, Canada, Denmark, adopted the exact same color palette as Nazi Germany, even the same armbands. Canada's been pushing it since 2014. They got it together this year, came out crazy high-strung. So did Denmark. Tread marks, black, right across, armband with the red and white lion on the black uniforms with the red and the big black tread mark to the armband. No different than Canada, because they're the same evil, same system. To get into where we're going, what is Donald J. Trump? Why he's focusing on Greenland, Denmark, Canada, the Arctic, NATO, NORAD, USMCA, because, folks, I gotta tell you, there are USA, UK treaties over the Arctic, over Canada, over Greenland, that apparently in 2022, Canada and Denmark said, you know what? Fuck USA. We're going to make a new treaty. These savage Indians belong to us. They're our property. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There was a 50-year quiet war, just like unceded Indians versus Canada. World never hears about it, but there were 2 crowns at war for 50 years since 1973. That was the Kingdom of Denmark and the new Kingdom of Canada, irrespective of UK. This is Governor General, everyone who held office of Governor General, and every Prime Minister of Canada versus the Crown of Denmark over the longest maritime border in the entire world. Did you know that? It was called the 50-year Whiskey War. And in 2022, a tip off from the works of Marco Rubio and the Joe Biden administration, Democrats and Republicans together, went over this and said, how dare Canada and Denmark decide the Arctic North's longest and largest maritime border without first consulting us and who? Are you ready for this? Arctic peoples, known under ICC as USA is the member, and UK member at the bequest of all Arctic members, meaning not a voting member, gives their vote to who? Who? United States of America. Oh, yeah. And guess what Canada and Denmark did in 2022? Hey, let's make a treaty. Hey, look how much money we can make on drug dealing. We can get rid of our Indian problem by flying drugs from all over the world into the Arctic, rain it down on all the Arctic peoples, all the Indian reserves of Canada. Pure fucking genocide, right? Your crown of Denmark, your crown of Canada. Oh yeah, USA will tell you 24 hours ago they've gotten rid of half of their drug problem. You're watching Mexico do it. They're killing cartel leaders. They have a national armed guard going to war with the cartels. Pop, pop, pop. No more drugs. Scratching head. Oh, where are all the drugs coming from? Oh, 2022's Canada-Denmark Arctic Treaty over, are you ready for this, everybody? 3,913 kilometers of maritime boundary, controlled by guess which government in the world? Canada! Yeah! Canada, Ottawa controls all the airways to Greenland. Do you know if you're a Denmark subject, you can't fly to Greenland, not unless you go through Greenland's crown. You're a politician, first class. You're going on a Denmark flight, sure. But other than that, you're contacting Iceland, who's got the contract with Canada, to Ottawa, and you got to book a flight to Canada and then go through Canada's government, who is orchestrating all the drugs. Sorry to burst your bubble. Yikes. Yikes. True story. Can't make this up. So it was split, you guys. This 50-year whiskey war, which is really fentanyl war. It was established in 1973. Hey, do you know what was done in 1973? Do you know what it was? Oh, yeah, that was the Narcotics International Law. That's right. Massive narcotics and drugs. So Canada and Denmark went to war over who's going to supply all the drugs through to the United States through the Arctic. Oh, yeah. Yeah, ignoring that law. They had their own law because they got property called Indians. Oh, yeah. Inuit, unceded, ceded, named, numbered. Inuk, Greenland, right? Same peoples. All under the control of the Canadian government. Dealing all the world's sorts of drugs through, down, poisoning all those Indians, Canadians, and right across the border of the United States. Do you know, folks, what that great vast expanse of maritime boundary, and we're going to get into the law Canada and Denmark are using, but they call international law, and I'm about to myth bust that. But do you know what those seas are called? One's called the Abraham Sea, and the other one's called the Labrador Sea. These seas are entirely the water maritime ways between Greenland and all of Arctic Canada. Abraham, who's the seas named after? Greenlee and Greenland. How does that work? Oh, shucks. Shucks, it's right here. Named after Lincoln's eldest son, Robert Todd Lincoln. And it goes on. Do you know what his title was in the United States at that time? This is 1881 to 1884. Do you know what his title was? You're never going to guess. Or maybe you will. Secretary of War. Hey, didn't Donald J. Trump just name a new title brought back from the past? Oh, yeah, Secretary of War. Remember that? Oh, you mean the first and original Secretary of War discovered, mapped, did the expedition through those Arctic waterways, 1881 to 1884. Americans did. Not fucking Denmark. And certainly not the shit called Canada. Canada was a country. Nobody did those waterways. USA did. Just like the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. That's Abraham Sea. Folks, Lincoln Sea, Abraham's son, America, mapped and charted all of those maritime waterways, all of Greenland and Arctic Canada, largest maritime boundary in the entire world. You know who didn't do that? Canada or Denmark. Neither kingdom. Nope. Never did. Never did. Don't worry, we're going to get into more. So, folks, why is the 2022 Denmark-Canada treaty over that vast swath between Greenland and Canada, all of that maritime waters, all of the islands, there's many, all of that, why did Canada and Denmark split a 60-40 agreement? Why did they end their drug war, their drug dealer war, and split it 60-40? And why did they not communicate with the United States of America? Well, because they believe they have a right, a very age-old right, called Doctrine of Discovery. It's in all Supreme Court rulings in Canada and in Denmark forever and a day. But there's a problem. You see, there's a U.S.-UK treaty, 1925, that predates all of them, even their Supreme Court rulings, which are in the 30s, and then the 50s, and then the 70s, where they say, those are savage Indians. We have a right of king. Those aren't human beings. Those are our property. No, folks. 1925, U.S., UK, you know, the kingdom that created all that, who turned it over to the United States, signed a thing called demarcation, which entitled Canada, the country, to vast swaths of maritime waters, as long as you respect America's rights to all those waters and their national security. And all your lands that are covered under 8 more treaties that pretty much dissolve all 10 provinces of Canada. Anything Canada calls private property. This is what Trump's holding on to right now. And it's his right as president when Canada and Denmark in 2022, under Sleepy Joe Biden, who didn't read the laws because he couldn't even remember his own name, sick, on autopilot, didn't notice Canada and Denmark end a 50-year war where they didn't want to consult the United States of America for over 3,913 kilometers. To give you all a perspective of how much of Greenland and Canada this is 2/3 of Canada. 2/3 of all of Canada's Arctic. Oh yeah. And Greenland's too. 2,100 nautical miles for Americans to watch. Bet you didn't know that, did you? There's way more treaties in this, but this is the violation Denmark and Canada did, like they always do to all the savage Canadian Indians under Canadian and Denmark, ICC, you know, all the people of Greenland, all the people of the Arctic of Canada, every unceded or ceded Indian in Canada, all named and numbered Indians, where they're never consulted. And don't worry, we're going to get into it. This is what Canada and Denmark said. You know what? America is just like a fucking Indian. They're inferior to us. They're less than us. We're divine. They're swine. They're not human beings. They're not fit to lick our boots. We were scared over the last 50 years. We've been drugging up America since they launched international laws on drugs. We bypassed it through the law of the sea, the Convention of the Law of the Sea, from the League of Nations, which hasn't existed post-World War II, which is not international law, hasn't been because USA's never signed onto the Law of the Sea. They've never signed it. They've never welcomed it. In fact, they vetoed it. You don't get to tell USA what maritime boundaries they're bound to. Americans will be bound to no boundaries, or you will fight them to the death. That's how it works. You have to choose that. You can't be a coward like the Crown. Old Sleepy Joe Biden didn't bother to look at any of this, but old festering Donald J. Trump, he had been watching over all of that since 2018, since he started the Chinese G7 radar, where he was watching Canada. He was watching Canada with China and India and the Arctic, where they've been bringing in massive drugs. It's why all the First Nations are so drug-ridden from the north all the way down through the reserves. America knows. America also knows about Greenland too. That's why there's a vessel, a hospital ship of mass size and scale on the shores of Greenland to test all the indigenous population, because they already know what's been done to them. They know what Canada's doing. They know what Denmark is allowing to happen and profiting from. Pretty scary stuff, eh? I'm going to turn on my light now we've got to that point. Remember, violation 1920, the Demarcation Treaty. That's what Canada and Denmark have done to the United States of America, as they always do to Inuit, Inuk, ceded, unceded, named and numbered treaty Indians, all under Indian Act. All of them under an Indian Act. Don't confuse this with the United States North American Indian, because none of them have been under anything like that for 120 years. So what is doctrine of discovery? Are you ready? Dum diversis inter caetera. Yeah. Do you know what that means? You know what that means? Seize non-Christian lands by decree of the Pope and the King. Yeah. That's why there's crown land. That's the law over Greenland. That's the law over all of Canada. Those are savage, non-human beings, non-Christians. It's not their land. It's automatically the King's by way of the Pope. In 2022, Canada and Greenland cemented that treaty over all of that between them, 60-40 split, and said it's okay. The Catholic Church recognizes it. But did they? No. Denunciation occurred by statement of the Pope of the Catholic Church in 2023, exactly 1 year before Donald J. Trump took office. So if the Supreme Court of Canada, the Supreme Court of Denmark, ruled in the 30s, 50s, and 70s that all of that land, Greenland, Canada, all of that crown land is justified. The Pope said it as it is. The King had the Pope say it is. They're not Christians. They're savages. They're non-human beings. We've bound that into international law. Except for the Pope denounced that and said, no, we were forced to say that by those 9 kingdoms. He said that in 2023. The Catholic Church has done denunciation. So now what is the law holding Canadian government officials, your Prime Minister over the federal crown lands, your premiers over the provincial crown lands, lieutenant governors, territorial commissioners, and Governor General of Canada? What is the international law you claim to cling to that isn't found post-1945, and even that which you cling to from the League of Nations under the International Court of Justice, League of Nations, not the International Court of Justice, United Nations, where UK has already sided with USA. Yeah. And their veto-wielding powers. They said, we're an observer of the Arctic peoples. We give it all to the United States of America. Folks, please tell me what you think Donald J. Trump should do. Since 2023, the Catholic Church has usurped the decisions of pre-World War II world powers that no longer exist. Germany's not there. Spain's not there. Japan's not there. UK gave their power to USA. What say France over all this? Because they are the veto powers of that old world order that no longer exists today. The Canada and Denmark say, it's okay, we're allowed to. They're not human beings. Catholic Church set our Supreme Courts into this truth. We have these historical decisions, but now the Catholic Church says we were forced to by the King. We don't believe in any of that. It's all a lie. Are you ready for this, everybody? We were church under state. We were church under state. We were forced to say that. We were forced to genocide those first peoples. Just like the Anglican Church. Just like so many others. Your government is lying. They're treating USA as they treat all their first peoples. There will be no negotiation. And I'll tell you why. Under dum diversus inter caetera, the inferior Indian shall be disposed of. Yeah, that's what all the Greenland Indigenous and all Canadian Indigenous, as the world likes to call them, their real name is Indian. It's a proud, noble name, North American Indian. It's okay. America's proud of that name. I'm wearing a Harley Davidson. There was Indian motorcycles. Nothing to be ashamed of with that. Everything that's American is from the American Indian. Where do you think natural law comes from? Where do you think the idea that it's better to live on your feet than die on your knees comes from? Which peoples in the world holds true to that from start to finish over more than 650 years straight? Which people in the entire world have held true to that? Which peoples? Where does natural law come from? Where does federalism come from? Who invented these political ideas that created two powerful nations, USA and Russia, one of which will never let go, which is USA? We'll never let that truth go. We'll never end the 50 states and sovereignty and equality of the person. Do you know why the Catholic Church handed over the sovereignty of all of that to the United States? Do you know what the reason for it was? Because it's satanic to view people as non-human beings, anyone who's non-Christian. That is nothing of Jesus Christ. He never ever said that, preached that. It's nothing of the New Testament. Canada and Denmark are designed not with Jesus. They may claim to be Christian nations. There's no such thing. You won't find a real Christian group where you have a king, you have a set of legal systems, where you define human beings as savages, as anything Christ-like in any way, shape, or form. Catholic Church denounces all of it. Terra Nullius, 1763, right of king, remains part of Canada, absolutely Denmark over Greenland, all of Canada in the Arctic, all of the Crown land. They say it's their right, their divine right, and these are not human beings. It's in Supreme Court rulings in both Denmark over Greenland and Canada over all First Peoples in every single judgment. Indian title. Are you ready for the ultimate every single Supreme Court judgment in Canada there ever was? It always goes back to 1763 precedent. Indian title only at Crown's pleasure. If you ever want to know the precedent, as Canada the country, everybody, Canada the country, 1888, the Supreme Court judgment, St. Catharines Milling Company. That was what the Supreme Court ruled, and that has been the precedent forevermore in Canada. Denmark has their own 1933 PCIJ. What is PC? Privy Council International Court of Justice from the League of Nations. Before United Nations, before the new International Court of Justice, Denmark rules that Denmark owns the Indians. That's why Norway has no title to Greenland, because officially the Crown of Denmark owns those Indian savages, just like Canada's crown. They're owned to be done with as the crown sees fit. (1973) was the Arctic drug war on America, and it was war between Canada and Denmark quietly over who owns all the Indians. This is the truth. Can't make this stuff up. Everything has been spoke of here. There's also a link, if I didn't put it in the title, which I think I didn't, but it's already copied. I'm going to do that, post this video for everybody to go through all the terminology, all the truth. And you tell me, who is humanitarian president forever and always in all American history? I tell you today, that's President Donald J. Trump. A magnificent mind, a magnificent human being, that we owe a lot of thanks to a lot of peoples, all Canadians, all Denmark subjects, all First Peoples from Greenland through to the Arctic of Canada, Inuk and Inuit, all the way down through unceded, ceded, named, numbered treaty Indians, all Canadian subjects. This is truth. This is reality. This is what needs to get out there and be shared by everybody. God bless, folks. That's my video. Get it out there. Undeniable. Can't make it up. Don't be part of the problem. Be the solution. Start with educating everybody you can. Don't be a Nazi Germany. Don't be a radical Islamist state. Stop the church under state narrative. Stop allowing governments to define themselves as superior, or any human being to decide themselves superior or divine, elite, godlike. There's no such thing. Humans are prone to good and evil. We're all equal. We're all capable of many different talents, some better than others. It does not give you a right. It does not give you a right to subjugate, slave, dehumanize, or worse, genocide. All of this must be stopped. I'm telling you all right now, Trump is on it. Canada is highlighted. It's been work Democrats and Republicans have been working on for a number of decades now, and we have hit the plateau of it under Donald J. Trump. That's my video, folks. Get it out there. Share, share, share. Good night. Bye now.